Let's talk about what I wish I had known and what many of you had probably wish you knew earlier in life that would have led you to adopting a lower carbohydrate or carnivore diet far sooner than any of us actually did. There's this concept out there that seems to be getting heavily debated right now among nutritionists, and that's the Randall Cycle. In the carnivore space, we tend to associate this with Professor Bart Kay and the work he does. And whether you like him or not, and I know a lot of people find his presentation style where he is just very, very blunt and has a low tolerance for BS, a little off-putting. I totally get that. Although I watched a few of his more recent videos a few days ago, and he's clearly toned down things a lot, so I would maybe suggest you go revisit his content if you are so inclined. He tends to be the biggest proponent of the Randall Cycle in this space. Now, there's a debate going on right now. Some of the nutrition experts saying that he's actually got the Randall Cycle wrong about some things. I will defer to the experts who are debating that. None of these experts seem to be people paid and bought for by the big food industry. They're not actually saying the Randall Cycle doesn't exist. They're just saying that there's a lot of the sort of, we'll call it biomechanics of it that they are saying he is not correct about. That having been said, I don't know that much when it comes to who's right or who's wrong. I do tend to think that Professor K seems to be right about at least the Randall Cycle leading to or being a major instrument for weight gain. And that's what I want to talk to you today about. I have in my own life discovered the Randall Cycle well before I was ever doing low carb. I didn't know what it was called. I couldn't explain it to you then. I can barely explain it to you now, other than that the Randall Cycle is when you have carbohydrates, usually in the form of glucose and the other forms carbohydrates take, and lipids in your system competing for absorption. That's not a very good definition. I am not a PhD in nutrition either. Again, I defer to Professor Bart Kay and his definition. However, I had learned this the hard way, and it's why we tend to look skeptically at calories in, calories out in this space. And I say that as someone who has to restrict the volume of the food that I eat, meaning, I guess, the calories total of what I eat just to lose the body fat that I'm trying to lose. But I had found in life that this wasn't always the case, that calories in, calories out was just an oversimplification of the process. And it came in the form of discovering that if I had a little bit of ice cream, which I think is the perfect Randall Cycle activation food, because it's high fat, high carb with very little protein, if I ate any of that, even if my calories were accurately counted and within my acceptable weight loss zone or maintenance zone, I would still gain weight, body fat. There's a reason that, I don't know if you've ever heard this story, but Christian Bale made a movie called The Machinist. I don't remember offhand if he won an Academy Award for that film or not, but he went on an apple and can of tuna diet per day diet, a crash diet to get down to looking like something out of a horrifying picture from the 1940s, if you catch my meaning. That's how he looked for that movie, for most of that movie. And right afterwards, the next movie he made was Batman Begins. And if you've seen that movie, you know he was built like a model. How did he get himself back into shape? He spent several hours a day in the gym, and he ate a lot of ice cream as well as normal food. That's what he said. He packed on the weight with the ice cream, and he had an Arnold-esque kind of workout. If you're trying to give yourself the glucose for a classic weight gain method, milk is actually often something people use for this, which also is a Randall Cycle activation. Whole milk is going to be loaded with sugar in the form of lactose, as well as fat. And you will classically, bodybuilders in the golden era were drinking whole milk by the gallon full. These are Randall Cycle activation foods. And to properly use them, you have to spend an insane amount of time in the gym. And I'm not talking like the workout I just had. That was a little over an hour in length between the weight training and then the little bit of cardio I did at the end. I'm trying to burn off, so to speak, the excess body fat that I've got. And so I'm doing cardio in addition to weight training, even though I don't usually do that. And to really utilize the Randall Cycle for strength training, for getting bigger, you have to spend such a ridiculous amount of time that you pretty much have to be professional to do it. And I wish I had known about the Randall Cycle years earlier, because I would have gone ketogenic at least, if not, and then carnivore if I'd found out about it well before I did. Because the standard American diet is essentially the Randall Cycle diet. It really is, especially the more plant-based you get. Have you ever really looked at the plant-based foods and their protein sources? They're a fraction of the protein in a single serving size of any of the substitutes for protein compared to a beef or chicken or anything. And then it makes up for the space with carbohydrates and plant-based fats. What I'd really like to see is a Randall Cycle study, if somebody could pull it off, of what happens if you, like, which is worse, a Randall Cycle diet, Randall Cycle activating diet that is what happens, what's worse, carbohydrates combined with animal fats or carbohydrates combined with plant fats. And we're taking basic inflammation and all the other reasons we don't normally consume plant-based fats in any real amount on this diet out of the equation. Just for all the things that Randall Cycle activates that lead to body fat storage, which is worse. I already can tell in the comments people are going to say probably plant fats, and you're probably right, but I'd love to find out the biomechanics of that. Has Professor K done a video on that? Has anybody else in this space done a video on that? I'd love it if it did. Email me a link, maybe put it in the comments. I don't know if links work in my comment section or not. They don't on my main channel, so I don't know if they will here. But let me know if somebody has done a study on that, because I would find that fascinating. Because it would answer an old question of mine. Why was it that, I've talked about this before, years ago, this would have been 15 years ago or something, I was early in grad school, and this was early master's program, and I was working on green political theory stuff, coming to understand sustainable development, the political philosophy behind it. And I took a green economics class, which had nothing to do with economics whatsoever, was mostly ideology. And I can't remember what the main project was in the class, but the alternative project was something I did, which was a lifestyle change and tracking of it, and including writing a paper on it. And I was struggling with body weight like I have my whole life at the time. And the teacher assured me that if I went to plant-based diet where I wasn't eating meat more than twice a week, I would lose a ton of body weight. So I did. And I ate very clean. And I went to the gym regularly. And I gained 20 pounds over the course of the semester. The professor was shocked. And I have a suspicion that it was that I was kicking into high gear the Randall Cycle during this, because you're eating a lot of these plant-based things. I wasn't going vegan, so I was still consuming some butter and some dairy, which is, in hindsight, probably how at least partially that happened. But also you get these plant oils all over the place. I mean, in those days I would have told you, oh yeah, olive oil, great. Avocado oil, great and trustworthy to buy. This was before the studies came out showing that avocado oil, that when you buy it at the store, is either not avocado oil or it's avocado oil plus olive oil or something else, or that it's avocado oil spiked with canola oil, and that's a thing. Or that a lot of the avocado oil you buy and olive oil you buy are rancid, and that it's best if you're going to buy those oils, you go pay good money for the good stuff from companies that are certified to sell what they actually are advertising. That was where I was in those days, and I gained 20 pounds over the course of that semester, and I couldn't figure out why. I wasn't, eating pizza, cheeseburgers, whatever. I distinctly remember going to the local Kroger store and buying, organic squash and all this other junk. And I wish I'd known about this beforehand, because I think the Randall Cycle really is something we don't talk about enough, and I think it's actually almost the key to how we understand everything the carnivore diet can give you. Because in that competition for glucose and lipid absorption in the body, I've seen Professor K speak about, damage to red blood cells and all these other things that all point to inflammation. And I really think, I really wish there was more expertise on this in our area, but unfortunately it's in the carnivore space. You see people mostly focused on outcomes, process, either just jump in with both feet into carnivore to strict carnivore, and here come your results. With not a lot of talk about all the consequences you're going to experience as you do carnivore. And so I'm going to probably start, as we get close to the end of the year, start making videos about that, because there are people right now, as I am talking to you, researching the carnivore diet to see if this is something for them. If the algorithm will ever let them discover our channels, as I reported to you a couple of months ago. Let me know in the comments, what are some things you wish you knew about, the not, all the not the benefits of carnivore and all these other things, about the things that really were undermining your classic dieting techniques before you stepped into the low carb or zero carb world. What do you wish you knew ahead of time? I mean, in hindsight, a lot of these diets that have come and gone, South Beach diet and all these other things, they seem to make about as much sense as the old martini diet, if you've ever heard of that thing. I saw in a magazine clipping from like the 60s or 70s where there was like people were eating eggs and drinking nothing but like champagne all day as a diet. That's terrible. But there were people doing it. Maybe someday just straight calorie counting will be treated that way too. I don't know. What do you wish you knew ahead of time? I wish I'd known about the Randall Cycle. I wish I'd known that, calories in, calories out doesn't work. Yes, I know there are doctors who have eaten nothing but Reese's Pieces and Reese's Peanut Butter Cups all day, hit their calorie mark, and they hit their calorie restriction mark, and they still lost weight. That's good for them. That's not everybody, though. What do you wish you knew ahead of time? Let me know in the comments, please. Hey, like and subscribe if you haven't. It does help. So does sharing this on social media. It helps too. I'm Anthony Stine, the Practical Carnivore. Thanks for tuning in.